The Valorian Empire had watched Earth for 50 years. Their ships sat hidden behind the moon, recording everything. They watched humans build cities. They watched humans fight wars. They watched humans send small rockets into space and thought it was funny. To the Valorians, humans were like insects trying to climb a mountain. Admiral Kethril commanded the 7th Dominion Fleet. He had conquered 12 worlds in his long career. He had never lost a battle. When the Empire told him to take Earth, he laughed. It would be the easiest mission of his life. The humans have nuclear weapons, his second officer said during the planning meeting. Primitive bombs, Kethril replied. Our shields will stop them like water stops fire. This world will fall before their sun sets. He was right about one thing. Earth did fall quickly, but he was wrong about everything else. The attack came on a Tuesday morning. Lavra Mitchell was drinking coffee in her office at the Pentagon when the first reports came in. She was 54 years old, a general with 3 stars on her shoulder. She had fought in wars across 3 continents. She thought she understood violence. She was wrong. General, we have unknown objects entering atmosphere over the Atlantic, a young officer said, his voice shaking. 37 contacts. They're not answering any communication. Lavra put down her coffee. Get me satellite feed, now. The screen on her wall flickered to life. She saw ships. Real ships. Not like anything humans had ever built. They were black and smooth, shaped like teardrops, and they moved through the sky like they owned it. My God, someone whispered. Then the ships opened fire. Lavra watched New York die. The plasma beams came down from the sky like fingers of white light. Where they touched, everything burned. Buildings melted. Streets turned to glass. People became shadows on the ground. One moment, 8 million people lived in that city. The next moment, there was only fire. Shanghai is gone, an officer reported, his voice breaking. London is gone. Moscow is under attack. Paris, Berlin, Tokyo. The numbers kept climbing. 10 million dead. 50 million. 100 million. Laura stood frozen. Her daughter Katie lived in Boston. She grabbed her phone and called. The line was dead. She called again. Nothing. She kept calling until an officer gently took the phone from her hand. Boston is gone, ma'am, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Laura felt something break inside her chest. But she did not cry. She did not scream. She pushed the pain down deep where it could not stop her from thinking. Get me to the mountain bunker, she said. We need to organize whatever is left. The bunker was buried deep under the Rocky Mountains. It had been built to survive nuclear war. Lavra arrived 6 hours after the attack began. By then, 900 million people were dead. 900 million. The number was too big to understand. It was just a number. But each one of those numbers had been a person. A mother, a father, a child. A friend. Katie had been one of those numbers. The other military leaders were already there. Admiral Kevin Grant of the Navy, General Peter Walsh of the Army, General Maria Santos of the Air Force. They looked broken. They looked defeated. Lavra understood. She felt the same way. But feeling defeated and being defeated were 2 different things. They're demanding surrender, Kevin said. Total submission. They want us to give up all weapons. They want to register every human for work assignments. They say if we don't agree, they'll keep burning cities. How many ships do they have in orbit? Lavra asked. 37 that we can see. There could be more. And our response capability? Kevin laughed bitterly. What response? We launched everything we had. Missiles, jets, everything. Nothing got through their shields. We hit them with 6 nuclear warheads. They didn't even scratch the paint. Laura nodded slowly. She had expected this. Human weapons were built to fight humans. These creatures were something else entirely. "Get me a communication channel to their command ship," she said. Everyone stared at her. "General Mitchell," Peter said carefully, "if you're thinking about negotiating—" "I'm not negotiating," Lava replied. "I just want to talk to whoever is in charge." "Can you do that?" 20 minutes later, she stood in front of a holographic projector. The image flickered, then stabilized. She saw the alien for the first time. Admiral Kethril was tall, maybe 7 feet. His skin was pale blue, smooth like polished stone. He had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. He wore a uniform covered in medals and symbols she did not understand. He looked at her the way a person might look at an ant. "You are the human leader?" he asked. His voice came through a translator, sounding almost pleasant. "I am General Laura Mitchell. I speak for what remains of Earth's military." "Excellent. Then you can accept our terms. Your species will submit to the Valorian Empire. You will disarm immediately. Your population will be registered and assigned to labor duties as the Empire requires. Resistance will result in further correction." Lavra kept her hands clasped behind her back. Her face showed nothing. Inside, she was burning. "No," she said simply. Kethril's upper eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. "No, you do not have a choice, human. Your military is destroyed. Your cities are burning. You have nothing left." "You're wrong," Laura said. "We have everything left. We have our anger. We have our grief. And we have our memory." She took one step forward, closer to the hologram. "I did not contact you to surrender. I contacted you to give you a warning. You struck Earth first. You killed our families. You burned our children. And you did it thinking we were weak. Thinking we were nothing." "You are nothing," Kethril said, but there was something uncertain in his voice now. "We'll see." Laura's voice was quiet and cold. "You should have studied us more carefully, Admiral. You should have looked at our history. We are a species that has never stopped fighting. We fight each other. We fight nature. We fight death itself. And we never, ever give up." She let those words hang in the air. "You've just given us a reason to stop fighting each other. You've given us a common enemy. And you've made us angry. That was your mistake." Kethril laughed. It sounded like clicking stones. "You threaten me? With what? Rocks and sharp sticks?" "With time," Laura said. "With patience. With human stubbornness. I don't know how long it will take. Months, years, decades. But I promise you this. Humanity will answer what you've done here today. And when we do, your empire will learn why every species in this galaxy should have left Earth alone." Bold words from a dying species. Lavra smiled then. It was not a warm smile. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had lost everything and had nothing left to fear. "Remember this moment, Admiral. Remember that a human woman stood in the ashes of her world and told you what was coming. Remember that I warned you. And when the day comes that human ships darken the skies of your worlds, remember that you had the chance to leave us in peace." She paused. "You struck Earth first. Now humanity will answer." She cut the transmission before he could respond. The room was silent. Everyone was staring at her. Finally, Kevin spoke. "Lavra, that was brave. But how? How can we possibly fight back against that?" Lavra turned to face her officers. Her face was hard. Her eyes were dry. Her voice was steady. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "But we're going to find out. We're going to hide. We're going to learn. We're going to build. And one day, we're going to make them wish they had never heard of Earth." She looked at each of them in turn. "They think they've won. They think we're finished. That's good. Let them think that. Because while they're celebrating, we'll be working. And when we're ready. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Outside the bunker, the world burned. 900 million people were dead. Human civilization lay in ruins. But in that small room, beneath a mountain, something new was being born. Something made of grief and rage and an absolute refusal to die that the aliens had come to conquer Earth. They had no idea what they had started. 5 years passed after the invasion. The world looked very different now. The Valorians had not bothered to conquer every part of Earth. They did not need to. They controlled the major cities, the power plants, the factories, the mines. They took what they wanted and ignored the rest. To them, humans were workers, nothing more. Useful insects that could dig and build and carry dot in the occupied zones. Humans lived under strict rules. They worked 12 hours a day. They ate what the Valorians gave them. They kept their heads down and tried to survive. Anyone who caused trouble disappeared. The Valorians did not explain where troublemakers went. They did not need to. Everyone understood, but the Valorians had made a mistake. They thought they had broken humanity. They thought the survivors were too scared, too tired, too beaten to fight back. They were wrong dot in the mountains and forests and deserts. In the places the aliens did not bother to watch, the resistance grew. Former soldiers gathered followers. Scientists hid their work. Engineers built secret workshops. And slowly, carefully, humanity began to prepare. General Laura Mitchell ran it all from a bunker beneath the Appalachian Mountains. The bunker had been built during the Cold War, forgotten for decades, then found again by survivors fleeing the invasion. Now it was the heart of human resistance. Laura was 59 years old. Her hair had turned completely white in the 5 years since the attack. She slept 4 hours a night and spent the rest of her time planning, organizing, and hoping. "We need more food supplies for the Western camps," her aide said, reading from a tablet. The winter was hard. They lost 30 people. "Reroute the next supply run," Lavra replied. "What else?" "Dr. Samuel Hayes wants to see you. He says it's urgent." Lavra looked up. Samuel rarely asked to see her. He was too busy with his work. If he was asking now, it meant something important. "Send him in." Samuel Hayes was 38 years old, thin and tired, with dark circles under his eyes. He had been a physics professor before the invasion. Now he led the science team, 300 researchers working day and night in hidden labs throughout the bunker complex. He walked in carrying a tablet. His hands were shaking. "Lavra," he said, "I need to show you something." He put the tablet on her desk and pressed play. A video began. It showed a small metal cube floating in the air, surrounded by strange blue light. As Lavra watched, the cube flickered and vanished. A moment later, it reappeared on the other side of the room. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "That cube just moved faster than light," Samuel said. His voice cracked with emotion. "We did it, Laura. We figured out how their engines work." Lavra stared at him. "Explain it to me." Simple words. Samuel took a deep breath. "Their ships fold space. They take 2 points that are far apart and bring them together. Then they slip through the fold and come out somewhere else. It's how they travel between stars in days instead of centuries. And we can do this now? Not yet. But we understand it now. We captured an engine core from a crashed patrol ship last year. We've been studying it ever since. And 2 days ago, we finally cracked it." He pointed at the tablet. "That cube is proof. We can fold space. We can build engines that match theirs." Lavra felt something she had not felt in 5 years. Hope. "How long until we can build a ship?" she asked. Samuel hesitated. That's the hard part. The power requirements are enormous. We need reactors that don't exist yet. We need materials we can barely make. Realistically, I'd say 5 years for a working prototype. 10 years for a real warship. You have 3 years. Samuel opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. He saw the look in Laura's eyes. He understood. I'll make it work, he said quietly. Laura nodded. What do you need? Everything. More scientists. More engineers. More materials. We need to set up hidden factories. We need to train workers. We need to steal technology from the occupied zones. You'll have it. Samuel turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Laura, there's something else. The Valorians use this technology carelessly. They waste power. They build their engines with minimum efficiency because they've had this technology for thousands of years. They've forgotten how to innovate, and Samuel smiled for the first time in months. We haven't. We're already finding ways to improve their designs. Our engines might actually be better than theirs. After he left, Laura sat alone in her office for a long time. She thought about Katie. She thought about Boston. She thought about 900 million dead. We're coming, she whispered to the ghosts. I promise. We're coming. The work began immediately. Hidden factories sprang up in abandoned mines, in underwater caves, in hollowed-out mountains. Workers smuggled materials from the occupied zones, risking their lives to steal scraps of metal and wire and components. It was dangerous work. The Valorians had patrols everywhere. They had sensors and cameras and informants. Anyone caught helping the resistance was killed publicly as a warning to others. But the workers kept coming. They came because they remembered the burning cities. They came because they had lost families and friends and everything they loved. They came because humanity refused to die. A young woman named Claire Morrison ran one of the underground networks. She was 26 years old, born 2 years before the invasion. She had grown up in a world ruled by aliens. She had never known freedom, but she remembered stories. Her father had told her about the old world, about cities full of light, about airplanes crossing the sky, about a time when humans looked up at the stars and dreamed of exploring them. Claire wanted that world back. She led a team of smugglers who moved supplies from the occupied city of Denver to the mountain hideouts. It was a journey of 200 miles through enemy territory. They traveled at night, hiding during the day, carrying backpacks full of stolen technology. Patrol coming, her partner Nick whispered one night. 2 walkers moving east. Claire pressed herself against a rock. The Valorian walkers were machines the size of houses, equipped with sensors that could detect a human heartbeat from a mile away. If they were caught, they would die. Worse, they would talk. The Valorians had ways of making people talk. The walker passed within 50 feet of their hiding spot. Claire held her breath. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure the machine would hear it, but the walker kept moving. It disappeared over a hill, its searchlight sweeping the empty landscape. Move, Claire whispered. Fast. They ran through the darkness, carrying the future on their backs. In the bunker labs, scientists worked around the clock. They took apart captured Valorian devices and learned their secrets. They built prototypes that failed, then built new ones that failed better. Slowly, piece by piece, they created something new. The first human faster-than-light engine was ugly. It was the size of a small house, covered in wires and cooling pipes, held together with welding and hope. It hummed with a sound that made teeth ache. Ready? Samuel asked his team. Ready, they answered. Samuel pressed the activation button. The engine roared to life. The air around it twisted and bent. And then, for one beautiful moment, a hole opened in space itself. The hole was small, barely big enough for a basketball. It stayed open for 3 seconds before collapsing. But it was enough. Samuel turned to his team. There were tears on his face. "We just became a spacefaring species," he said. "For real this time." The news spread through the resistance like wildfire. For the first time since the invasion, people allowed themselves to believe that victory was possible. WarneHFY received the news in her office. She read Samuel's report 3 times before setting it down. Then she began planning the next phase. Humanity had learned to fold space. Now they needed ships to fly through it. They needed weapons to fight with. They needed soldiers to crew them. They needed a fleet, and somewhere in the stars, the Valorian Empire went about its business, unaware that the insects they had crushed were building something in the dark, something made of stolen knowledge and human stubbornness, something that would change the galaxy forever. The quiet years were almost over. The storm was coming. The Valorian patrol cruiser moved slowly through the asteroid belt. It was a routine mission, the kind Lieutenant Valsara had done 100 times before. Scan the rocks. Check for smugglers. Report back to base. Nothing ever happened out here. Anything on sensors? Commander HFY asked from his chair. Nothing unusual, sir. Just rocks and ice. HFY nodded and went back to his reading. HFY nodded and went back to his reading. He was 200 years old, a decorated officer with a long career behind him. He had fought in 7 wars, conquered 3 worlds, and earned every medal on his uniform. Now he was stuck doing patrol duty around a primitive planet because the Empire thought the humans needed watching. What a waste of talent, he thought. Then his ship exploded. The Defiance came out of nowhere. It had been hiding behind a massive asteroid, its engines cold, its crew waiting in darkness for 6 hours. When the Valorian ship passed within range, Captain Daniel Cooper gave the order. Fire. The plasma bolt hit the cruiser's shields with enough force to light up the asteroid belt. The shields held barely. The second bolt broke through. The third tore a hole in the hull. What is that? Valsara screamed, her fingers flying across her console. Unknown ship, unknown configuration. Weapons are. The fourth bolt killed her. Daniel Cooper watched the enemy ship spin out of control. He was 42 years old, a former Navy pilot who had spent the years since the invasion training for this moment. The Defiance was humanity's first real warship, built in secret. Crewed by volunteers who knew they might die before ever reaching combat. None of them had expected to survive this long. Forward batteries. Finish them, Daniel ordered. Keep us moving. I don't want any surprises. The Defiance was ugly compared to Valorian ships. Where they built smooth and elegant vessels, humans had built something brutal and practical. The hull was thick and angular, designed to take damage and keep fighting. Every system had 3 backups. Every weapon had twice the power it needed. The humans had built their ship expecting to lose. They had built it to hurt the enemy even while dying. They had built it with rage. The Valorian cruiser broke apart under the final barrage. Its reactor went critical and exploded, scattering debris across 1,000,000 miles of space. Commander HFY managed one final transmission before he died. 3 words that would change everything. They have ships. The bridge of the Defiance was silent for a long moment. Then someone started cheering. Then everyone was cheering. Daniel let them celebrate for 30 seconds before raising his hand for quiet. That was 1 patrol ship, he said. There are thousands more where that came from. Save the party for later. Right now, we have work to do. He turned to his communications officer. Send word to General Mitchell. Tell her first blood has been drawn. The message reached WarneHFY 3 hours later. She read it alone in her office, then read it again. Then she sat down heavily in her chair and allowed herself to cry. They were tears of joy. For the first time in 8 years, humanity had fought back and won. "Katie," she whispered to the empty room. "We got one of them. The first of many." The victory was small, but news of it spread fast. In the occupied zones, people whispered about the mysterious ship that has destroyed Valorian cruiser. In the resistance camps, morale soared. In the hidden shipyards, workers doubled their efforts. If one ship could do this, what could 10 do? What could 100? The Valorians were slow to understand what had happened. Admiral Cathrall received the report in his quarters aboard the orbital station above Earth. He had grown comfortable in the years since the invasion. The humans were broken. The planet was controlled. His position was secure. Then he read about the patrol ship. "This is impossible," he said to his aide. "The humans cannot have ships. They cannot have weapons that pierce our shields." "The evidence suggests otherwise, Admiral." Commander Threshold's final transmission was very clear. Cathrall's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of agitation among his species. He remembered the human woman who had spoken to him years ago. Her cold eyes, her quiet promises. Humanity will answer. "Find that ship," he ordered. "Send everything we have." I want it destroyed. But the Defiance was already gone, hidden in the vast darkness between planets. And it was not alone anymore. In the months that followed, 3 more human ships joined the fight. The Vengeance, the Retribution, the Never Forget. Each one was built in secret, crewed by volunteers, armed with weapons that the Valorians had never expected to face. The humans did not fight fair. They attacked supply convoys and vanished before reinforcements arrived. They ambushed patrol ships and left no survivors to report their positions. They struck at the edges of Valorian territory and faded into the darkness of space. It was guerrilla warfare on a scale the Empire had never seen. "They fight like animals," one Valorian commander complained. "No honor, no formation. They hide and strike and run away." "They fight like survivors," another replied quietly. "Like people who have nothing left to lose." Captain Daniel Cooper led most of these missions. He had a talent for finding weak points in enemy formations, for knowing when to strike and when to retreat. His crew loved him. His enemies learned to fear his ship's signature on their sensors. One night, floating in the darkness near Jupiter, Daniel gathered his crew for a meeting. "We've done well," he said. 6 months of operations. 14 enemy ships destroyed. 0 losses on our side. But that's about to change. He pulled up a holographic display. It showed a Valorian supply depot near the asteroid belt, surrounded by defensive platforms and patrol ships. "Command wants us to hit this target. It's their main fuel station for operations in the inner system. If we take it out, we cripple their ability to resupply their occupation forces on Earth." His first officer, a woman named Susan Blake, studied the display. "That's heavily defended, Captain. We'd be going in against at least 5 ships plus fixed defenses. Yes, we might not come back." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know. That's why I'm asking for volunteers only. Anyone who wants to sit this one out can transfer to another ship. No shame, no questions." He looked around the room at his crew. 53 people who had followed him into battle again and again. 53 people who had left everything behind to fight. Nobody moved. "Well then," Daniel said with a small smile, "I guess we're all crazy together." The attack on the fuel depot was supposed to be a quick strike. Get in, destroy the storage tanks, get out. Simple in theory. It did not go as planned. The Valorians were waiting for them. Someone had talked, or their sensors had improved, or they had simply gotten lucky. When the Defiance and its 3 sister ships jumped into the system, they found not 5 enemy vessels, but 12. "It's a trap," Susan reported calmly. "Orders, Captain?" Daniel had 3 seconds to make a decision. Retreat meant survival, but failure. The fuel depot would remain operational. The occupation would continue. All ships, attack formation. Target the depot. Ignore the warships. Sir, that's suicide. No, that's the mission. The human ships dove toward the depot like wolves. The Valorian fleet moved to intercept, but they were too slow. The humans had built their ships for speed as well as strength. The Retribution took the first hit, a plasma blast that tore through its engine section. It kept firing as it died, its weapons blazing until the reactor went critical. The explosion took out 2 enemy ships that had moved too close. The Never Forget followed minutes later, ramming a Valorian cruiser to clear a path for the others. But they reached the depot. Daniel watched his weapons tear into the fuel storage tanks. Massive explosions bloomed in the darkness of space, each one representing months of Valorian operations destroyed in seconds. Target destroyed, Susan reported. Captain, we need to go, now. The Defiance ran. Behind it, the Vengeance fought a desperate rearguard action, buying time with its death. The last human ship in the formation, it faced 8 Valorian vessels alone. It lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes that allowed the Defiance to escape. Daniel watched the Vengeance explode on his sensors. He thought about the crew. 47 people he had trained with, fought with, gone. Get us home, he said quietly. The Defiance limped back to base, damaged but alive. It was the only ship to survive the mission, but the fuel depot was gone. The Valorian occupation force would spend months recovering. And somewhere in the Empire, officials began to wonder if the humans were more dangerous than they had thought. General Lavra Mitchell met Daniel when his ship docked at the hidden base. She looked at his face and understood without asking. The others? She said, gone, all of them. Laura nodded slowly. They died well? They died fighting. They died for Earth. Then we'll remember them. And we'll build more ships. And we'll keep fighting until there are no more enemies left to kill. Daniel looked at the old general with her white hair and tired eyes. She had lost everything in this war. Her daughter, her friends, her whole world. But she was still standing, still fighting. How do you keep going? He asked. After everything? Laura was quiet for a moment. Because stopping means they win, she said finally. Because every day I fight is a day humanity survives. Because my daughter would have wanted me to keep going. She put her hand on his shoulder. We've hurt them today. We'll hurt them more tomorrow. And one day, we'll make them pay for what they did. That's how I keep going. One day at a time. One battle at a time. 1 year after the attack on the fuel depot, humanity controlled the outer solar system. 6 months after that, they had pushed the Valorians back to Mars. The insects were no longer insects. They were a threat. Admiral Kethrel stood on his command deck, watching the tactical display with growing horror. Red markers showed human ships. Blue markers showed his own fleet. There were more red markers than blue now. How is this possible? He demanded. They were primitives. They had nothing. His aide did not answer. There was nothing to say. The Empire had sent reinforcements. 3 full battle fleets, hundreds of ships. The kind of force that had conquered entire star systems. It was not enough. The humans fought differently than any enemy the Valorians had ever faced. They did not form neat lines. They did not follow predictable patterns. They attacked from every direction at once, using their smaller ships to slip through gaps in Valorian formations. When one of their vessels was damaged, the crew did not surrender. They aimed what remained at the nearest enemy and fired until death. It was terrifying. Admiral, the humans are requesting communication, an officer reported. Kethrel hesitated. He had not spoken to the humans since that day 8 years ago, when the woman general had promised revenge. He did not want to face her again. Put it through, he said finally. The screen flickered. General Laura Mitchell appeared. She was 63 years old now, her white hair cut short, her eyes as cold as the space between stars. She sat in a command chair on what appeared to be a massive warship. Admiral Kethrol, she said. I told you we would answer. You cannot win this war, Kethrol replied, but his voice lacked conviction. The Empire has 1,000 fleets. You have destroyed a few ships. It means nothing. It means everything. Lavra leaned forward. 8 years ago, you burned our world. You killed our families. You thought we would break. Instead, you made us strong. She gestured at something off-screen. This ship is the Reckoning. It is the flagship of the human fleet. There are 2,000 ships under my command, Admiral. 2,000. And more are being built every day. Kethrol, as four eyes widened. 2,000 ships. The humans had built 2,000 warships in less than a decade. It was impossible. It was insane that it was human. I am offering you one chance, Lavra continued. Leave our solar system. Take your ships and go. Tell your empire that Earth is no longer worth the cost. And if I refuse? Laura's expression did not change. Then we will destroy you. All of you. Every ship, every station, every soldier. We will leave nothing but wreckage for your empire to find. The transmission ended. Kethrol stood alone on his bridge for a long time. He thought about his career. He thought about his reputation. He thought about the 12 worlds he had conquered and the millions who had died under his command. Then he gave the order to attack. The Battle of Earth, as historians would later call it, lasted 3 weeks. The Valorian fleet approached in standard formation. Their massive warships arranged in layers of overlapping fire zones. It was a tactic that had worked for thousands of years against. Dozens of species thought the humans ignored it completely. They attacked from above and below. From left and right, from angles the Valorians did not know existed. Their smaller ships swarmed around the enemy fleet like angry insects, striking at weak points and retreating before the big guns could target them. Admiral Daniel Cooper, now commanding the assault carrier Freedom's Call, led the main attack. His ship was different from the small raiders he had piloted during the Resistance. It was massive, built to carry hundreds of fighter craft and enough firepower to crack a planet. All wings launch, he ordered. Target their command ships first. Cut off the head, and the body will fall. 1,000 human fighters poured out of the carrier base. They were small and fast, each one piloted by someone who had lost family in the invasion. Each one carrying enough hatred to burn a star. The Valorian formation began to crumble. On the Reckoning, General Mitchell watched the battle unfold. She had fought in wars before, but nothing like this. This was chaos. This was violence on a scale she could barely comprehend. The enemy flagship is breaking formation, her tactical officer reported. They're trying to retreat. Don't let them, Lavra said. Send the second fleet to cut off their escape. I want Kethrol's ship surrounded. The order was given. The second fleet moved to obey. Admiral Kethrol watched his command collapse around him. Ships that had seemed invincible were burning. Officers who had served him for centuries were dying. The humans were everywhere, fighting with a fury that defied reason. Admiral, we need to withdraw, his aide urged. If we stay, we will all die. Kethrol looked at the tactical display. His fleet was surrounded. His communications were jammed. There was no escape. Signal the flagship, he said quietly. Tell them I request terms. The message never reached Lavra Mitchell. Before the transmission was complete, a human torpedo struck the command deck. Admiral Kethrol, conqueror of 12 worlds, died in a flash of white light. He never heard Laura's response to his surrender request. She would have refused anyway. The battle continued for 2 more weeks. Without Kethrel's leadership, the Valorian fleet fell into disorder. Ships tried to flee and were hunted down. Ships tried to fight and were overwhelmed. Ships tried to surrender and were sometimes accepted, sometimes not. The humans had not forgotten what had been done to them. Many of them did not want to show mercy. Lara struggled with this. She understood the rage. She felt it herself every time she thought of Katie. But she also knew that becoming like the enemy was its own kind of defeat. Accept their surrender, she ordered when the last Valorian battle group signaled submission. Take them prisoner. Treat them according to the rules of war. Ma'am, her executive officer said carefully, many of our crews won't like that. I know. Do it anyway. Lara turned to face him. We're not fighting to become monsters. We're fighting to survive. If we lose our humanity in the process, then the Valorians have won even in defeat. The order was followed, though not happily. When the last enemy ship was captured, Lara allowed herself one moment of private emotion. She went to her quarters, locked the door, and wept. She wept for the dead. She wept for the years of hiding and fighting. She wept for Katie, who would never see this day. Then she dried her eyes and went back to work. Earth needed to be liberated. The Valorians still held the surface. The ground campaign was shorter, but harder. The alien soldiers fought desperately, knowing they had nowhere to retreat. Human Marines landed on beaches still scarred from the initial invasion, stormed cities that had been occupied for a decade, and fought room by room through buildings that had once belonged to their own people. The last Valorian garrison surrendered. 6 weeks after the space battle ended. Lara Mitchell stood on the steps of the ruined United Nations building in what had once been New York. The city was gone, replaced by alien structures and occupied housing blocks. But the steps remained, and she stood on them because they meant something. Around her, thousands of people gathered. Humans who had lived under occupation. Humans who had fought in the resistance. Humans who had simply survived. 10 years ago, Lara said, her voice carried by speakers throughout the ruins. They came to our world and burned it. They killed 900 million of us in a single day. They thought we would submit. They thought we would become slaves. She paused, looking out at the crowd. They were wrong. A cheer began to build, but she raised her hand for silence. We have won a great victory today. Earth is free. But this war is not over. The Valorian Empire still exists. They will send more ships. They will try again. Her voice hardened. So we will not wait for them. We will take the fight to their territory. We will free every species they have enslaved. We will tear down their empire piece by piece until the galaxy is safe from their tyranny. Now the cheering could not be stopped. It rolled through the crowd like thunder. The sound of a species that had been pushed to the edge of extinction and had pushed back. Lara waited until the noise died down. They struck Earth first, she said quietly. Now humanity will answer. Not with vengeance alone, but with justice. Not with hatred alone, but with strength. We will show the galaxy what humans can do when we fight for something greater than ourselves. She raised her hand toward the stars. The universe is watching. Let's show them who we are. The crowd roared. And somewhere in the void of space, the Valorian Empire began to tremble. They had awakened something terrible. Something that would not rest until the galaxy was changed forever. They had awakened humanity, and now they would learn what that truly meant. The Valorian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. It spanned 800 star systems. It controlled 63 conquered species. Its citizens believed with total certainty that the empire would last forever. They were wrong. The human advance began slowly at first. Single fleets probing the edges of Valorian territory. testing defenses, gathering intelligence. The Empire responded with force, sending battle groups to crush the invaders. Those battle groups did not return. General Lavra Mitchell was 71 years old when she led the main assault. Her body was failing, kept alive by medical technology stolen from the enemy and improved by human scientists. Her mind remained sharp as ever. Her will remained unbroken. She stood on the bridge of the reckoning, watching 10,000 human ships form up for the final push. Behind them came vessels from 11 other species, freed slaves who had risen against their masters when they saw humanity's example, thought the Alliance had been Laura's greatest achievement. She had spent years meeting with resistance leaders from conquered worlds, convincing them that the Valorians could be beaten. Many had not believed her at first. The Empire had seemed too strong, too permanent, too overwhelming to challenge. Then they watched the humans fight. The Varath want to lead the first wave, her aide reported. They say they have waited 5 centuries for this chance. Let them, Lavra replied. They've earned it. Coordinate with their fleet commander. The Varath were insect-like beings who had been enslaved when humans were still living in caves. They had watched humanity's rise with wonder and hope. Now they fought alongside their liberators, eager for revenge. The Allied fleet jumped to the Valorian homeworld 3 days later. Valoprime was beautiful. It was a world of crystal towers and floating cities, of gardens that stretched for thousands of miles and oceans that glowed with bioluminescent life. It was the heart of the Empire, the seat of power for 12,000 years. Thought it was also the most heavily defended place in the galaxy. Orbital fortresses ringed the planet, each one bristling with weapons. Defense stations formed layers of protection around those fortresses. Battle fleets patrolled between the stations. And on the surface, millions of soldiers waited for ground assault. The Valorians had prepared for everything, almost everything. Begin the attack, Lavra ordered. The Allied fleet surged forward. Human ships took point, their enhanced shields absorbing fire that would have destroyed any other vessel. Varath fighters swarmed around the flanks, their pilots screaming ancient war cries. Ships from a dozen species followed, each one carrying centuries of hatred and hope. The first orbital fortress fell within an hour. Its defenses had been designed to stop conventional attacks, not the desperate fury of beings who had nothing left to lose. Human Marines boarded the station and fought room by room, taking casualties but never stopping. The second fortress lasted longer. Its commander was clever, pulling his forces back to create killing zones. The Allied forces adapted, sending smaller ships through gaps in the defense. GRID, while capital ships drew fire. Admiral Daniel Cooper died during that assault. His flagship, the Second Defiance, was crippled by a direct hit to the reactor. Instead of abandoning ship, Daniel ordered his crew to the escape pods and aimed what remained at the fortress's weak point. His last transmission was simple. For Earth, for everyone. The fortress exploded. The gap in the defenses allowed 3 assault carriers to break through and deploy ground forces directly to the planet's surface. Lavra felt his death like a physical blow. Daniel had been with her from the beginning. He had believed in her when belief seemed foolish. Now he was gone. She allowed herself one moment of grief. Then she pushed it aside and continued the battle. The fighting lasted 9 days. 9 days of chaos and death and desperate heroism. Ships burned. Stations crumbled. Soldiers died in numbers too large to count. But the Allies kept coming. On the 4th day, the orbital defenses were broken. On the 6th day, Allied forces controlled the skies above Valoprime. On the 9th day, human Marines fought their way through the capital city and reached the Imperial Palace. Lavra Mitchell walked through the shattered gates herself. She was too old for combat, too valuable to risk on the front lines. But this moment belonged to her. She had earned it with 10 years of suffering, and struggle. The palace was empty, except for the Imperial Guard. They fought bravely, dying one by one as human soldiers advanced through marble halls and golden chambers. The Valorians had built their seat of power to last forever. Forever had ended. Emperor Velthax the Eternal sat on his throne, surrounded by the last of his guards. He was ancient, older than any Valorian Lara had ever seen. His blue skin had faded to pale gray. His 4 eyes were clouded with age, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "So you are the human leader," he said. "The one who destroyed my empire." Lara stopped before his throne. Behind her, human soldiers kept their weapons trained on the remaining guards. "I am General Lara Mitchell," she replied. "I speak for humanity and our allies." Allies. Velthax made a sound that might have been laughter. "Slaves, you mean? Species we conquered and civilized. And now they turn against us because of you. They turn against you because you gave them no choice. You took their freedom. You destroyed their cultures. You made them work and die for your glory." Laura's voice was calm. "We just showed them it was possible to fight back." The Emperor studied her with ancient eyes. "How did you do it? Your species was nothing. A minor world. Barely worth conquering. How did you build all this in a single generation?" Lara thought about that question. She thought about Katie. She thought about 900 million dead. She thought about the quiet years of hiding and building, the desperate battles, the allies who had joined their cause. "You made a mistake," she said finally. "Not just the invasion. You made a mistake in how you saw us." She gestured at the ruins around them. "You saw a primitive species, divided, weak, but you didn't understand what we really are. We're survivors. We crawled out of caves and conquered our world. We survived ice ages and plagues and disasters that would have ended most species. And we did it by refusing to give up. Ever." She stepped closer to the throne. "When you attacked Earth, you didn't break us. You united us. You took a species that had spent its entire history fighting itself and gave us a common enemy. You took our grief and our rage and our refusal to die, and you focused it entirely on you." Emperor Velthax was silent for a long moment. "What now?" he asked finally. "Do you kill me? Enslave my people? Become what we were?" Lara had thought about this question for years. She had imagined this moment countless times. In her dreams, she had burned Valorian worlds, killed their children, made them suffer as Earth had suffered. But standing here now, in the ruins of their power, she felt something unexpected. Not mercy, exactly. Not forgiveness. But something else. Something that felt like the person she used to be, before the war, before Katie died. "No," she said. "That's the difference between us. We're not here for conquest. We're not here for revenge, though we've earned it. We're here to make sure no one ever does to another world what you did to ours." She turned and began walking away. "Your empire is finished. Your fleets are destroyed. Your subject species are free. But we're not going to wipe you out. We're going to let you live. And every day for the rest of your existence, you'll remember what happened when you struck a species that doesn't know how to quit." At the door, she paused and looked back. "You struck Earth first. Humanity answered. Remember that. And remember to tell your children, and their children after them, never again. Never touch Earth again." The Emperor said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Lara walked out into the light of an alien sun. Behind her, the empire of 12,000 years collapsed into history. Outside the palace, soldiers from a dozen species waited. Human Marines stood beside Vorath warriors, beside former slaves who had thrown off their chains, beside beings who had never known freedom until now. They watched the old woman emerge from the ruins, and they began to cheer. Lara raised her hand for silence. When the crowd quieted, She spoke. The war is over. The Valorians are defeated. The galaxy is free. She paused, looking at the faces around her. So many species. So many stories. So much suffering and so much hope. But freedom is not the end. It's the beginning. Now we have to build something better. Something that protects the weak and respects the strong. Something that never allows another empire to rise and enslave the innocent. She thought of Katie. She thought of all the dead. She thought of everything humanity had lost and everything they had gained. We came here for justice, she said. We found something more. We found allies. We found purpose. We found a future worth fighting for. She raised her hand toward the stars. The galaxy is watching. Let's show them what freedom looks like. The cheering began again, rolling across the ruined capital like thunder. Beings from across the galaxy raised their voices together. United by a species that had refused to die, Laura Mitchell, 71 years old, tired beyond measure, allowed herself a small smile. Katie would have been proud. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, on 1,000 worlds and 1,000,000 ships, the story of Earth spread like wildfire. The story of a species that had been struck down and risen again. The story of a war fought with